I've been listening to this tale about a dude named Ted, standing there just looking at the tools in his shed. And then he got to thinking, just looking ain't no fun. Let's pick one up and plug it in and see if it'll run. It did. Pretty good, too. Now old Ted's a happy guy 'cause he's got a pretty wife. Figures if he plays it right, he'll keep that gal for life. That gal, her name is Beverly, and he's her hillbilly. He's sweet on her, she's sweet on him, they're happy as could be. She's Beverly, he's Hillbilly, he's Beverly's Hillbilly.
So I've said it before, I'm not exactly the sharpest knife in the drawer when it comes to remembering to video things. And I got the top of this thing that I'm working on nearly done before it occurred to me that I should maybe show you folks. You might be interested. Anyway, here it is. It is, well, it's sitting in the sun trying to dry a little bit, hoping that that blue jay doesn't poo on it. In the meantime, I've got it underneath here though, with part of it at least sitting in the sun. This was an end cut off of, well, a rather large piece of firewood actually, and I don't know if you can see it. It was actually only half of it, and I cut it and glued it together down the center so that I have sort of a butterfly effect. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 trunks, and I'm not sure where that kind of blackish color came from in the middle, but it's there. It's natural. It's as natural as what you find in a piece of wood, I guess. It's almost blue, but it's black, and it's butterflied. Anyway, so that's just glued together, and unfortunately you can see that it's still gassing a bit. The glue, I should have waited a lot longer, I guess, is gassing a bit. That's why there's a bubble right there. I'm going to send another one there. I'll probably see if I can pop them. Might need another coat. I've got 3 fairly heavy coats on it because around the outside edge it's a little bit dead and it really soaks it up. And I've got the whole thing glued to a chunk of what I had, a pressure treat piece of 2x10. So it's actually 9 inches by 1.5. I'm going to make a kind of a skirt to go around to hide that a little bit. And my wife telling me that I was thinking about making 4 legs for it, but she told me that she thought she'd like it to have a single pedestal. So in here, I just finished jointing and gluing up a piece of oak. That's oak out there as well. And the radio's too loud, as I'm probably not allowed to have anybody know what I'm playing on the radio. I'm not sure why. Anyway, so those are glued up, and in a few hours they'll be dry enough. I'll cut it down and make it a proper square on the table saw, and then I'm going to take it over to the lathe. I'll take that sanding disc faceplate off of there and put the lathe chuck back in it, or head back in it, and we'll turn some sort of a leg out of that. And out of some of the pieces that are around here, I think I'll use this to make the skirt that goes around it, around that piece of 2x10. And I'll use some of these offcuts of oak. There's one there, and there's some more down underneath my radial arm saw to make feet and a support for the top. So I'm not sure. I'm thinking, I kind of thought I'd try to make a 3-footed thing. However, unless I make that a complete circle, it's going to be hard to make it look right on a the pedestal, that is. Unless I make it a completely rounded, it's going to be kind of hard to make it look right with 3 feet instead of 4. Anyway, just like everything else I do, it'll be what flashes in here hopefully appears in the wood. All right, and I do emphasize hopefully. Anyway, I'm gonna go find something else to do while everything dries up. My wife let me buy some beer. Maybe I'll have one. Maybe I'll wait for her to come home and we'll have one together. She's getting off work early today. And it's a Friday afternoon. Look at this little guy over here. Can you see him there? I think I might have to tame him. He's got a compatriot. I think they must have gotten a bit of a fight. His tail is kind of short. Anyway, it's a beautiful blue sky day, the beginning of a long weekend, the first long weekend of the summer. In Canada here, we call it the May 24th weekend. And just look, I cut the grass 3 days ago. It almost needs cutting again. It's just like, almost like it's summertime. It is a beautiful day. Anyway, enough of that. I'm gonna go find something to do. See ya. I suppose for those of you who are wondering how in the world I managed to cut that, that was about a 4-inch thick piece, and I think it may have actually been part of the wedge that was originally cut out of the tree when they cut it down, and I squared it up a bit with the chainsaw. But when I split it in half with the chainsaw, that's how I cut it in half. I didn't do a very good job of getting it straight all the way through. So you'll notice here, for example, that this is a bit thicker than that. But it was a real mess before that. So what I did was I used a device that I call my poor man's thickness planer. I'm not altogether sure. Well, yeah, a thickness planer probably would have worked once you got one side flat. But I used this thing, and where's the other piece? There it is. The clamps aren't part of it, except for these ones, which are holding it to my little table. This sits on here, and the router sits in there with a end bit, a flat end bit on it, and you fasten, or I fastened the workpiece down to this flat surface, and then just worked the router back and forth over it until it was flat on one side. And then you adjust the thickness, you flip the thing over and flatten the other side. And I was able to flatten most of it so that it's almost all the same thickness out there. But I didn't worry too much about that one little end. So, because it's going to be on the bottom anyway. And it's supposed to look rustic. Anyway, so that's how that was done, just in case you were wondering. Maybe next time I'll be smart enough to show you. See this here? This is what comes off it when you do that. So that what you're looking at on the floor there, all around here, about 1.5 inches deep, and the same over here, is about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of solid oak, chewed down to make it flat. Right? Once again. So this piece of oak that I glued up for the leg, I squared it up on the jointer and the table saw. I have marked a center mark on both ends, and I'm going to take it over to my lathe. Now the problem with the lathe right at the moment is it's set up as a disc sander, so I guess I need to switch that, don't I? Alright, here we go. I don't know how much of this you'll be able to see, but difference here is, I don't know if you can see that or not. Probably not. I've probably been standing right in the way the whole time. Anyway, oops. Is that focusing? Those little teeth there are sharp, and they dig into the end of the piece of wood to keep it from spinning, just spinning on it. So when you start it up, it turns in this direction, which puts tension on those, and the more you spin it, the tighter or the deeper those little gouges go that hold it there. It's decision time. I've got to decide what I want to make on this thing. And I think I've decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the center between here, and I'll make kind of a ball there, and I'll make a kind of a tapered carrot on each end that goes toward the ball. Does that make sense? Of course, by no means am I an expert. Please don't assume that I'm trying to say I am. But there it is. There's the basic profile. I'm going to repeat this on this end, and then I'm going to come after it with some sandpaper, and we'll see if we can figure out how we're going to mount it to that table. So I'm going to shut you off for that. So back to the little oak table that I'm making. I've enclosed the piece of pressure treated 2x10 with oak. It's screwed and glued, and some of it's just glued, I've got the leg kind of fastened in there with glue so far. I'll put screws into it later. And I'm still working on the foot. This is one possibility. Since it's oak, it's good and strong. It's got a nice straight grain, so it should be good that way. I think I'll just glue and screw that there, and you notice it doesn't go all the way to the back. That's so that I can create something that will go that way across the back. Won't look like that, but to create the back two legs. And I'll just fasten a little bit of something on the ends so that it'll have 3 feet. And with 3 feet instead of 4, you run a better chance of it sitting something like level or not teetering back and forth like you know, because my gazebo floor is made with just paving brick, and of course they're not exactly the same thickness and so on, so and it's just here's the plan. I've got it marked on here to cut a notch out of the back side of that, which I've already notched will fit over, and then this piece will go up to it, and it'll all fit together and make 3 legs, 3 feet. Well, I think I got it set. That's an inch away from there, and well, that should be all right. All right. Are you with me on this? All right. Well, so far so good. I don't know how it's going to work. We're going to try, see if we can lop that off somewhere else. All right, I have no idea how I'm going to cut that, but we're going to try. Just have yourself a wee look there. It's not nearly as bad as you might think it might be, or as I might think it might be. And this is supposed to fit right over there like that, and of course it doesn't quite, does it? It's well, as you can see, it's not a perfect joint yet, but it's a lot closer. And my name, unfortunately, is not Paul Sellers or any of those guys that really know what they're doing. I'm just a hack, and that fits in there quite nicely too. So I'm going to introduce some glue to it and some screws. Oh, what a beautiful day. Finally, eh? I love watching the birds. And I kind of don't even mind their feet. Speaking of birds' feet, oh look, it looks like a huge bird foot, but it does hold the table up. Anyway, I'm going to get some finish on it, and we'll go from there. I don't know. I don't know if I'm all that horribly excited about it, but I guess it'll have to do for now. Makes kind of a neat looking table though. Maybe it won't look quite so ungainly when it's got this back against the wall. Anyway. Oh boy. Anyway. Here's the old fart, formerly known as Stud Muffin, signing out.
So now I guess this episode is all done and said. I would like to thank you all for visiting with Ted. If you'd like to see what's next, why not subscribe and see? It's not that hard, just click on it, it's easy as could be. Comment too, I'd like that.